Greetings, ladies and gentlefish, and welcome back to another pair of subscriber replays! Yay! And I swear, for a tank class that on paper shouldn't necessarily be the most popular just because it can be quite difficult to play, you guys send me loads of light tank games. I'm not complaining, I like watching light tank games, I just find it a little bit odd. Anyway, we're kicking off the proceedings today with BritishB and his AMX-12T, and there's a few reasons I wanted to show this replay. Firstly, it's a pretty decent game. That's a good reason. Secondly, the AMX-12T isn't a machine you see that often, and it's not a particularly popular tank, and there are good reasons for that. That's not to say that it can't perform, of course, but it's kind of sluggish, the gun is kind of unreliable. Ooh, hello, Mr. T-71. You know, it's just a bit... Ooh, Progetto, that's worth taking the shot against, actually. And also because you may have noticed that, well, this is 357 matchmaking, and BritishB's AMX-12T here is very much at the bottom of that 357. He's a tier 6 in a tier 8 world, and so it can be kind of nice just to see, you know, a tank get a respectable result, even when things aren't necessarily stacked in your favour. So, already, we're here on Overlord, by the way. British has spotted out some guys and opened fire on that Progetto. Well, that's a bit optimistic, Mr. T-52. Now, I think the shots on the Progetto were perfectly sensible, even though it clearly resulted in BritishB being spotted, because, frankly, the Progetto is a very dangerous machine, especially in this case, where it's top tier. He had good shots into the side of the guy. I don't know why the guy did that, actually. That was a bit of a suicide run, but hey, you know, let's not critique the enemy while they're making a mistake. So I think those shots were very well justified. And here's an MT25 who's just going to be a bit of a sad panda. He gets one shot in, to be fair, 114. That's a high damage roll with that 57mm gun. Unless the guy is using a different gun, but I don't think the MT25 gets a larger caliber gun. Anyway, takes one hit from the MT25 and then suddenly artillery's like, hi. But, you know, sometimes there's justice in the world. Bye. And British is able to finish off that artillery piece. Scoreline's 5-1, by the way. British doesn't have a huge amount of health left, but, well, that's the rear of an unfortunate SU. So, he's dead and becomes kill number 3. This is turning into a little bit of a romp. I mean, it doesn't, of course, guarantee the friendly team are going to win this, but it's looking pretty good. British is just trying to find a shot on this Comet, not able to do so. But hey, you know, you might as well at this point have a go. The other reason that people tend not to like the AMX-12T is that, in case you haven't noticed, the ammunition capacity isn't great. Meaning that when you absolutely have to, especially when you're bottom tier, cheeky kill secure, you don't necessarily have the ammo to carry the game. British puts one there into the Comet and, ooh, hello, sweet tasty artillery. And that one actually picks up the kill. What's the average damage on this gun? 135, so that was a high damage roll. Now it's worth pointing out, of course, on the subject of ammunition, that BritishB is down to 8 rounds of armour piercing. Now, don't get me wrong. It's toward the end of the game and he's had a good game. Oh, come on, can he get the kill, get the kill, get the kill, get the kill? Yes! Very nicely done, and that is the match. Now, British has had a good game. He's fired a fair few shots. But, he hasn't had to kind of completely take the team on his shoulders and carry them. And one of the problems with this tank is if you do have to do that, you just don't have the ammo. Anyway, let's have a look at the post-game stats for this first game in this video. So, that game ended up being enough for Ace Tanker, Duelist, Fire for Effect, Top Gun, a Dimitri's medal for killing 3 enemy SPGs, which of course these days is the highest number of SPGs you're going to get in a match, so that's not a medal that you see that often anymore. And the Yoshio Tamada's medal, which is also a medal you don't see very much. Destroy at least 2 enemy SPGs in a light tank in one battle, and you have to survive. And the enemy tanks have to be at least 1 tier higher than you. So that's quite a nice one to get. Basically, murder higher tier artillery. Sweet. So a very nice game there for BritishB. 1,710 damage done, 6 kills, of course, for that casual top gun, 1,164 base experience, which, for an ace, that's sort of the amount of experience you need for some of the less well-considered tanks at tier 6, I suppose. The Flat Panzer is a similar sort of story. Whereas if you're playing something like a Cromwell, I tend to find the ace requirement seems to be a little bit higher, unless it's changed since I played it, which was a while ago now. 18 shots fired, 15 hits, 15 pens. So BritishB's gunnery was good, and he penned every shot that hit. 1,710 damage, as I mentioned, most of it from pretty close range, which is probably where this gun needs to be used most of the time. It doesn't work very well at longer ranges, your dispersion is not very good, your bloom values are not very good, and your shell velocity is not very good, and your penetration's kind of lacking. So definitely a closer range gun. 6 enemy vehicles spotted, 10 destroyed, so that's 2/3 of the enemy team. 6 killed, of course, only 222 assistance damage, so most of that XP was from murdering people. That was actually a very quick game. It was done and dusted in under 4 minutes. And with a premium account, British made a profit of 43,500 credits, which is none too shabby. These mid-tier tanks, even though they're not premiums, they do tend to make a respectable amount of credits, bearing in mind, of course, that was a good game for the AMX-12T. So there we go, a nice little quick game there to kick us off, and let's see what the second one has for us. Now, it's very difficult, I find, to mention subscribers sending me light tank replays without mentoring, that's a word, without mentioning Baldrickk. So here we go. This is a game from Baldrickk, driving the Tier 8 German light tank, the HWK-12. Now this is a replay I'm kind of interested in, because I have the HWK-12, even though I've played through, aced the RU-251 and unlocked the Tier 10, can't remember what it's called, German light tank. But I bought this because I haven't played it before, because when I was going through the German light tanks it didn't exist. And, well, I bought it and I need to ace it. So, yeah. Now, this is a completely Tier 8 match. Fair warning, by the way. The first game in this video was a bit of a pub stomp. This one's going to be a little less one-sided. So, it's a completely Tier 8 match, just Tier 8s as far as the eye can see. And that was a little bit unlucky. And he did get spotted. And we're here on... oh, what is the name of this map? Redshire, of course it is. Duh. It's been too long. And hopefully Baldrickk can have a good result. Now, if you have a look at the team disposition, there's quite a lot of tank destroyers floating around, and there's only one light tank on each team. So Baldrick's kind of important here. Now, this thing packs a little 90mm gun. Hello, Mr. Defender. Ooh, Baldrickk does go for the shot there. Which with regular AP is packing 180 pen. With heat, that goes up to 250. And the HE rounds aren't too shabby. 320 alpha, 45 penetration. Not too bad for going and hunting artillery or scorpions. Yeah, there's a few of them on the enemy team. A bit of a dodgy shot there. Looked like the guy had driven behind the wall. But either way. Now, if we take a look at what we've got going on here, the enemy team kind of has a couple of scorpions. The friendly team, a couple of differences, but ooh, the friendly team sort of have some prototypes, to be fair, so for the enemy team. That was a nice little tracking shot. If Baldrickk hadn't been spotted there, ooh, that could have been tasty. Now, I find it interesting that Baldrick's using this position. I must confess, when I've tried using this position, or a position fairly similar to it, I find if you're not careful, you tend to expose yourself to people shooting you from kind of over there. So I find if I do use this kind of position, I have to be quite circumspect and not fire the gun. I have been punished quite hard for sitting here before. And actually, there's a T-92. This could be interesting. The enemy light tank. Now, the T-92 is an American premium light tank. And it packs a smaller gun with a higher rate of fire, higher DPM. But not going to have quite the same sort of HE rounds. So in a one-on-one mono duel, most likely Baldrickk could make the use of his HE rounds. Oh, no joy there. Make use of his HE rounds to buff his otherwise dubious DPM against that guy. Now the T-92 manages to put one shot into Baldrick. I must confess, when Baldrick got spotted there, I did think staying there to get the shot on the Centurion was a little bit dicey. And one thing I've noticed about the 90mm guns you tend to find on the German light tanks before you get to tier 9 anyway, with the RU-251, the shell velocity is kind of icky. And so all side of a T-28 prototype is a bounce. The shell velocity is kind of icky, which makes shots at range awkward. Combine that icky shell velocity with mediocre accuracy, let's be honest, side of the turret, that might have gone in. And, yeah, long-range engagements can be a problem. Now, when you get to the RU-251 at tier 9, that thing still gets a 90mm gun, but you start packing APCR rounds as your standard ammo type. And so, your shell velocity is higher correspondingly. So Baldrick has swung round now. He's not continuing to engage that T-92, but if you look at the scoreline, it's 1-4. That's not a particularly good start for the friendly team, and unfortunately Baldrick has missed a lot of shots, or bounced some shots. This gun, and it looks to me, I haven't played the HWK-12, but it looks to me like it's very similar to the Sparpanzer 1C, SP1C. Now I haven't played that at tier, well, I have played it at tier 7, but when I played it, it got tier 8 matchmaking. Baldrick here, by the way, is loading a heat round, 250 pen, to go through the front of that T-28 prototype, or to maybe go through the front of that T-28 prototype. The prototype's packing about 200mm of armour, plus any angling and whatnot going on. But he switches back to AP and decides not to engage the prototype, which I think, on balance, is probably the better decision, given the guys who are behind Baldrick and may well threaten him. So yeah, this looks kind of like the SP1C, that when I played it used to get tier 8 matchmaking, and I didn't like that tank. So, thing with these sort of tier 7 and 8 German lights is they're kind of sluggish. They seem to be designed more to be damage support tanks, but when you have dubious penetration, dubious accuracy, dubious shell velocity, I find myself questioning how good they can be at that role. But hey ho, there we go. Nice 269 into the Scorpion there, and manages to get the second shot in to finish the guy off. Up to 1,000 damage now, by the way, which for a tier 8 light tank is not too shabby. Plus 273 assistance damage. I mean, it hasn't been a particularly amazing bout so far, and if some of those shots that missed or bounced had actually done something, that would have been nice, but you know, you kind of have to take what you get sometimes. Ooh, GW Tiger P there, one shot into him. I'd have been tempted, I think, to load a HE round to try and guarantee the kill there, but as it is, Baldrick decision ends up being the right one, because the HE round wouldn't have been able to do that. And the artillery died anyway. Scoreline is 10-10, by the way. This is looking a little bit close. Oh, that shot hits the side of the S1. It looks like, although Baldrick didn't have the best of luck earlier on with his shots, it's kind of starting to pay off now. Scoreline is 11-10. This is quite close. Up to 1,600 damage now, and just shy of 900 assistance. Just as I say that, the friendly team, of course, lose another tank, making this rather more dicey. Takes one hit from the T-28 prototype, but you can abuse the prototype in a light or medium tank, because although that thing does have a turret, it is a tank destroyer, it doesn't have a fully rotating turret. Now if I were Baldrick, I think I would be really tempted to go for a tracking shot here, just to really make sure this guy can't fight back. But the thing with the T-28 prototype is that it has the turret can rotate through a very wide arc around the front and sides, but it can't actually go around the rear of the tank, and the traverse on the prototype isn't great. So Baldrick is just able to feast on that guy, om nom 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 nom, and suddenly he's up to 2.8k damage. And the prototype becomes kill number 3. But while he was solo killing that prototype, the friendly team were getting slapped about a bit. So the scoreline is 12-12, and there are 3 tanks left on each side, and unfortunately, of course, Baldrick did eat a shot from that prototype on his approach. It had been difficult to avoid taking one round. Thankfully, the guy didn't have HE loaded, because I'm pretty sure the armour on this tank is probably rubbish. And ooh, what can we do over here? So, Ooh, low health defender, but hey-ho. I mean, there's a free shot on the T-34, 259, nice damage roll. Now, Baldrick is actually loading the heat here, I am assuming, probably to deal with that defender. And by the way, the friendly team are now down to 2 tanks, just Baldrick and the artillery. Oh dear. Now, Baldrick does have to be a little bit careful here. 440 alpha damage on that defender, so a max damage roll of 550, assuming he doesn't fire high explosives, so not going to get one shot by him most likely, although, given that it's a HWK-12 and an SU-14-2 on the enemy team, I think if I were that defender, I'd be loading the HE. So a HE round would have a decent chance of killing Baldrick, and of course the 490 alpha from the Jagdpanther, that didn't hit him thankfully. 490 alpha from the Jagdpanther, again that could kill him. And if the guy's loading HE, that's going to be messy. T-34, similar story, can't kill him with HE in one shot, 400 alpha, whoa, I say that. Maybe you can kill him with one shot HE, sorry, I take it back. Anyway, the artillery actually manages to nail the defender there, which makes this a bit better. Now, Baldrick still has the heat loaded. I'm not 100% convinced this is the right choice. Now, obviously, with the heat ammunition, you get higher penetration for dealing with the front, let's say, of the T-34 or the Jagdpanther 2. The problem is, of course, that it's susceptible to being eaten by things like spaced armour and tracks, and the T-34 has quite chunky tracks on the side of the hull. So, and as I say that, Baldrick actually switches back to AP. You can make a case for either ammo type in this particular instance, and oh dear, sneaky Jagdpanther 2 going for the friendly artillery there, and that was not enough lead on that shot. Here you can see what I mean by the dubious shell velocity on this 90mm gun, and now, and Baldrick apologises in chat, but even if he'd landed that shot, the artillery still would have died. And now Baldrick finds himself in a 1 versus 2 scenario. These guys can kill him in definitely 2 shots, maybe 1 shot, depending on what sort of ammo type they load out, they pack. What can Baldrick do? Now, we know that Jagdpanther 2 is on full health. There's not really any way around that. The T-34, thankfully, was on low health, but probably not a 1 shot, but these two are isolated, so Baldrick is able to hunt them down individually. You have to take your advantages where you can. The other advantage, of course, that Baldrick has is that he was facing a slow, sluggish, probably blind, heavy tank, and a tank destroyer without a fully rotating turret on a big, wide, open map. So the map really favours Baldrick here, which is nice, but the match, 2v1 kind of didn't, but Baldrick has managed to even that out. So the Jagdpanther 2 clearly has the bigger gun and better armour and more health. Baldrick has the mobility, camo, and that's about it. Well, a fully rotating turret, to be fair. View range, it really depends what equipment they've each gone for. The Jagdpanther 2, with something like coated optics or binos, depending on your crew skills, can certainly get a respectable view range. And the HWK-12, where you can see on the minimap that Baldrick is either packing 445 view range or thereabouts, maybe slightly less, maybe a bit more. So, almost guaranteed to be using coated optics here. And now, in this scenario, Baldrick is loading the heat ammunition, which is not a terrible idea if we're going to be honest. The shell velocity on the heat is probably terrible. Doesn't say here. Shell velocity on the heat is probably terrible, but, well, frankly, I just noticed Baldrick's out of AP, so I don't know why I'm waffling about this. He doesn't really have much choice. But there you can see the camo holding up as Baldrick does not get spotted. Now, he waits until there's a bit of foliage between himself and that Jagdpanther 2 before firing. Nice thing about using heat in this particular scenario, 1, it doesn't lose penetration with range, and 2, whereas the armour piercing would be fine for the lower plate of the Jagdpanther 2 and things like that, it would struggle with the upper front plate. Unfortunately, that shot didn't penetrate. Now, I don't know if it was eaten by the guy's tracks, or if it bounced off the guy's superstructure. The Jagdpanther 2 has very well-angled superstructure, which can be quite difficult to deal with. So, Baldrick has managed to take a little bit of health off that Jagdpanther 2, and he's closing the distance here. There are two ways of approaching this, really, and Baldrick is forced now into the second approach. He's running out of time. He took some shots at range where he can use his superior camo rating to outplay, essentially, the Jagdpanther 2. If he closes the range, then the advantage he's running on, I would suggest not going into the cap circle, because that lets the Jagdpanther know where you are. But anyway, the advantage that Baldrick's running on here is that in a close range knife fight, of course, the Jagdpanther 2 doesn't have a turret. So if Baldrick can get to his sides or rear, this is essentially game over. Ooh, there's the Jagdpanther 2. Now, here's also a question. Is the Jagdpanther 2 firing high explosive? Because if he is, he could well one-shot Baldrick. If he's not, he could put a shot in. Oh, dear, 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 and blow off Baldrick's tracks, but as it is, doesn't matter. The Jagdpanther 2 completely whiffs his shot, and Baldrick finishes him off with an ammo rack at the end. And in that scenario, the Jagdpanther was just screwed. In fact, in that end scenario where Baldrick was fighting two enemy tanks, yes, you're fighting two enemies, and that does put you on the back foot, but on a map like this, where you can use the light tank's mobility, view range, camouflage, where you're against one tank without a turret and one tank, okay, with a turret, but it turns at glacial speeds, you can really take advantage of them. And with 47 seconds left on the clock, Baldrick was able to clean that up. Very, very nice game there. Let's have a look at the post-game stats. So I'm sure it will come as no surprise to anyone who is watching that game that it was an ace tanker. Who'd have thunk? Along with Spotter, Bruiser, Demolitionist for that hilarious ammo rack at the end, Fighter, Fire for Effect, Confederate, and a high caliber. Not quite enough for a top gun, as Baldrick only managed 5 kills, not 6. Poor Diddums. 4,707 damage, which would be that would be an awesome game in any tier 8, let alone a tier 8 light tank. 5 kills, like I said, 1,719 base experience, and not all farming either. Baldrick had to work for that, especially toward the end. Shout out should also go, by the way, to the friendly artillery piece. Albertinio 90 in the SU 1412. 3,000 damage, which in artillery is a lot. 3 kills, and he was there almost to the end before that Jagdpanther got him, supporting Baldrick. Very nicely done there. Commiserations should probably go to, I'm not going to try and pronounce that name, the T-28 prototype, second on their team, on the enemy team. Poor guy. Poor guy. I assume it was that T-28 prototype that Baldrick just humiliated. Yeah. Poor guy. Like, in that situation, there was nothing he could do. Baldrick just had him banged to rights, and the guy was dead. And I guess a shout out should also go to the Object 252U, defender on the enemy team. I'm not going to try and pronounce that name. 2,500 damage isn't too bad, but I mean, you are in an Object 252, though not on a particularly great map for it, to be fair. But anyway, Baldrick smashed it, in short. 33 shots fired, 25 hits, 22 pens for that damage count. Actually, quite a lot of which was from close range. 2 hits received, 2 penetrated, 7 enemy vehicles spotted, 11 of the enemy team damaged, 5 of them killed, of course, and just shy of 1,800 assistance damage, and over 8 kilometres travelled, which is quite a lot in anyone's book. And with the standard account, Baldrick was still able to make a 23,000 credit profit, even though he did fire some heat rounds, as there was a 17,500 credits there from a mission. Very, very nicely done there from Baldrick, and a good game as well from BritishB. Hopefully you should have popping up on your screen somewhere to go and view some other videos or playlists in case you are feeling the need and in the mood. And there's a big red button. It's not red. Okay, there's a button to subscribe if you wish to. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy yourselves, and I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.